Being a New Orleans Pelican fan isn't much fun. Depleted by injury and chained to an unreliable superstar, they seem doomed to the fate of basketball purgatory. So how do we get here, and is there any hope on the horizon? Let's start with the current outlook. We are in year 6 of Zion, and if anything, it's going backwards. The guy coming out of Duke was the hottest ticket in town, and it seemed like the sky was the ceiling for him. In his second season, he already looked the part, and was 8th in the league in field goal percentage, a rare feat for a sub-7-footer, and was a free throw machine. He was recognized in his first All-Star game, and his style brought joy to fans all around the world. A guy built like a defensive lineman who combined insane first-step quickness, Hulk-like strength, and unreal finishing ability around the rim. Not to mention, he could jump out the gym and posterize you as well. Now, what I'm about to say pains me, because I think that is the best we will see out of Zion. If we flash forward to the year 2024, Zion does not look like the same player. I don't think he's improved much skill-wise in any facet since joining the league, and his athletic X-factor is now diminishing returns. His game is just not contributing to winning basketball. Zion is currently near the top of the league in usage, shooting sub 50% from the field, and is averaging almost 4 turnovers a game, while currently being near the bottom among starters for defensive rating and defensive win shares. I was expecting more from Zion, especially as he was one of the most hyped first overall picks in recent memory. You'd be hoping that by now he'd be putting the team on his back, but instead it's just the same old story for him. Another setback for a guy that has reportedly only suited up for 47.5% of his regular season games for the Pelicans since being drafted. It's not just Zion. The circumstances for the Pelicans are bleak. Zion's new hamstring injury is just one of many. DeJounte Murray played 1 game before breaking his hand, and now they have multiple weeks without the services of key players Herb Jones and CJ McCollum. A thin rotation of players which also features no real front court options to speak of. Considering these injuries, they have no option but to put the plans to trade BI on hold. Meaning this team doesn't just feel incomplete, it feels extremely thin as well. This contributes to an overall feeling that the roster and the franchise are in no man's land, which would not be the first time, as we'll discuss later. They have enough talent, in theory, to reach a play-in scenario, yet they're underpowered in a murderer's row of a Western Conference. They've also committed to Zion until 2028 to the tune of $200 million. A contract which now just seems downright untradeable. They do have some assets to make a move, but even so, it's debatable how much impact they can make to this roster in its current form. Add to this a questionable level of coaching with a frustrated fan base, and the situation just seems depressing as it ever was. So, how did we get here? And was it ever any different? Let's rewind back to 2002-03. Now, the history of Charlotte and New Orleans franchises is pretty convoluted. So much so that the NBA ruled in 2014 that the history of the Pelicans should start at 2002-03 and that the then New Orleans Hornets should be treated as an expansion team. If you want to dig into the details, the team actually moved from Charlotte, and the reason was due to the owner, George Shinn, being widely despised in the city for an alleged rape accusation. Despite the nature of their beginning, the first 2 seasons in the city were actually decent. Yet, unfortunately, by 2005, the team would experience upheaval as New Orleans was struck by a generational hurricane. The team would be uprooted and play until 2007 in both Charlotte and OKC, with the latter experience being so positive from a fan atmosphere perspective that it would influence OKC later in getting their own franchise. In these understandable conditions, the Hornets were bad in 04-05 and would then get the 4th pick, using it to select a transformational star. This positive step brought an exciting next half-decade, with CP3, David West, Peja Stojakovic, and Tyson Chandler's Hornets teams being fun. Their peak would come in 07-08, in the season they returned to New Orleans, notching a heartwarming 56-win season. They'd eventually make the Western Conference semifinals as a 2-seed, losing in a thrilling 7-game series to the San Antonio Spurs. Yet that is as far as they would go, because they were afflicted with the common ailment of being good but not great. In a Western Conference that boasted a prime Kobe and Pau Lakers, the Popovich Spurs, and the 7 seconds or less Suns, they were always a step behind. By 2010, the Hornets were in financial disarray, and the NBA would ultimately purchase and run the team. This became quite relevant as a what-if in the CP3 trade, as then Commissioner David Stern was influential in the Clippers landing the All-Star point guard. Regardless, this started a precedent in franchise history in which their franchise star would depart for better shores. In 2012, the NBA would sell the Hornets to the Saints owner for what now seems like a bargain of $338 million. In that same year, the Hornets would also win the lottery and select AD, fueling a common conspiracy theory at the time that Stern rigged it on their behalf. A year later, they would be named the Pelicans, a reference to the Louisiana state bird, and the AD era would well and truly begin. The Brow was an unstoppable force of nature, again a bona fide MVP candidate, but it was more or less a one-man show. His early teams would feature a young Drew Holiday, Eric Gordon, and Tyreek Evans, and he'd later be paired with DeMarcus Cousins, but a pair of first-round exits was as far as they got. The Western Conference again proved too competitive, and the Pelicans were continually off the pace. Seeing no future with the Pelicans, AD would demand a trade request, and this would set up a pronounced saga. Yet ultimately, like CP3 before him, AD would depart New Orleans and go on to have more success. Despite losing another generational star, the Pelicans would be reimbursed in kind, receiving a gigantic haul. The Pelicans got the services of Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks. Along with winning the Zion lottery in 2019, this really seemed like a new chance at a bright new beginning. Yet, the outcome has not led to winning basketball. So far, that draft capital has been used to acquire Jackson Hayes, a miss, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a hit but was later moved in the CJ McCollum trade, Herb Jones, a hit, and Dyson Daniels. Looks promising but was later traded for DeJounte Murray last summer. Yet this really seems like a wasted opportunity, especially when you compare it to the OKC Thunder. While the Thunder's haul was larger, getting 5 first-round picks and the services of SGA from the Clippers, they also had more success in scouting and player development. Those picks turned into Trey Mann, later traded for Gordon Hayward, Jalen Williams, aka J-Dub, and Dylan Jones. As it stands today, SGA is now a perennial MVP candidate, and Jalen Williams is hotly tipped to be an all-star in the future. Key pieces in a core that now looks to contend for an NBA title for the next 10 years. Not to mention the OKC Thunder still have picks to go in 2025 and 2026. So one team kickstarted a potential new dynasty, and the other one, well, it remains where it always is. Following a first-round exit to the Suns in 2020-21, it did seem like the Pelicans were building towards something, and they were a team on the rise. Flash forward a few injury-plagued Zion seasons later, and in 2024, Zion is yet to play in a playoff game. It seems like the Western Conference has only strengthened, and the Pelicans, well, they're in stasis. So, you might be asking, is there any hope to speak of? As I foreshadowed, there is some. They have quite a lot of draft capital, and BI is currently playing increased minutes, so there's hope this showcases him to a potential suitor. In 2025 and 6, they'll have CJ McCollum on an expiring, meaning he'll have increased trade value. It depends on who they get back in any trade, but they'll also theoretically have cap room to make moves. Additionally, they also have attractive trade pieces currently to package in any deal, including Trey Murphy III and the intriguing Jordan Hawkins. So unlike, say, the Clippers, there are still plenty of bullets in this cartridge for the Pelicans to build a roster. Still, all these moves are based on the fundamental assumption that Zion will be your best player and you'll be building around him. Is that really a guarantee of long-term success? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. When people refer to cursed or snake-bitten franchises, usually they mean a team that came close but was cruelly denied by a twist of fate. The Pelicans are not that. They are cursed to maybe a worse fate. Unlike the Hornets or the Wizards, they are not comically bad. In fact, at times they can even portray the illusion of competence. They'll lure you in with a false dawn, selecting a transformative franchise player, leading a new, exciting young core that builds a sense of excitement and a hope about the future. There's an old English saying that goes, "It's the hope that kills you." Yet the Pelicans don't even set you up with even a glorious failure, but a slow, inexorable decline punctuated by the franchise player departing, one that continually repeats itself. The mirage that appears continually over the horizon but is always further away no matter the distance traveled. A team that succeeds yet remains so far from the finish line. The curse of being just good enough, but far from great. Now what do you think? Would you rather be cursed by a team that was a powerhouse but failed to win the big prize in regular spectacular fashion, your 1990s Buffalo Bills type situation, or be doomed to an 8-seed playoff team at best for the next 10 years? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video and please subscribe for more NBA content.